Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vadiazo back in another Card 5 Vanguard deck of enjoyed. I'm like, subscribe, and start, shall we? This time we are covering Dimension Police Enigmans. So I think we all have the same opinion on this with Enigmans, where for some reason they gave us Storm this early, and based off of what its skill says, we're definitely getting more Enigmans. But I think we're all a little pissed off that he was just a random reveal. And right now, as of right now, obviously it's going to change in the future. Hopefully, he can't get that much power on his own, and his second ability kind of becomes virtually impossible unless you have Laurel. Well, in this case, if you're me, it's not virtually impossible. It's not impossible as much as it's just hard. It's not hard if you're playing this deck, because I found a way just to consistently do it. Or at least every time I play this deck, I can consistently hit 50k without even trying. I mean, granted, I have to go through more effects if I don't get Laurel, but you get the point. It's not that hard. So let's go ahead and get this deck profile started, and we'll see what we got, right? First up, we have our starter and little hero Dracokid. Grade 0 boost, 10k shield, 6k base. Auto, when it's rolled upon, draw a card, then if your opponent's Vanguard to grade 1 or greater, you get a quick shield ticket to your hand. So standard starter, but nothing special about it. You get a draw, you get a quick shield. That's pretty much it. The starter can be pretty much whatever you want. If we ended up for some reason getting an Enigman starter, which I know we're not going to, but if for some reason we did, Bushy, please make that our random premium reveal. Then in that case, he'd be really good, because then he would give 5k to the Vanguard, but since we don't have an Enigman starter, just run whatever starter has the draw skill. But I prefer Little Hero because he's cute. Then we have our trigger lineup. So we run a total of 8 draws, 4 Army Penguin, 4 Diamond Ace. Okay, Diamond Ace is the Sentinel, continues Sentinel before someone's in deck, and auto guard when places card 1 from your hand, one of these can't in the battle. Here's my reasoning for it. The second you want to draw Laurel, like if you want to make this easy on yourself, which is something I like to do, you want to get Laurel out. Or unless you just want to make your Vanguard hit 100k, because I've done it once. It was funny when I did it because it was an instant win. But you want to have the 4 rear guards for Laurel. Granted, Laurel can rest himself, but you're gonna need 3 other rear guards to do that consistently with. 2, your opponent can just start nuking your shit, and they're probably gonna aim for Laurel first. So you got to run the draws to try to get a second Laurel into your hand. So you know, if one dies, you can just recall it, or hand cards to refill, so you can call them for Laurel usage. So yeah, we run the Diamond Ace PG because it's a draw, and you want to get those draws for your rear guards and possible Laurels. And then we run the Army Penguin because, like I said, you want those draws for the possible Laurel plays. And then we run for crit and Justice Cobalt. You could run 12 draws just to guarantee you're going to see a Laurel probably, but I do like the 4 crit along with it just because it makes the Vanguard slightly more deadly and the rear guards that you may have after you use a Laurel slightly more deadly. So I prefer the 4 Justice Cobalt. If you want to go like 12 draws or 10 draws and 2 crit or some other combination, that's probably fine, but I just like it this way. And then we have our Furry Heal and Dimensional Robo Gorescue. Okay, we all know why I'm not running the Heal Guardians at this point. If you don't know, go watch the Locks video. It kind of explains it for you. But if you want to know the main definition of or the main reason why I don't like it, is because they are detrimental to my playstyle, and they don't really help me much. If Heal Guardians have proven to help you in your playstyle, go ahead and run them, but if you're like me and you don't like running them, don't run them. So 4 Gorescue, but it doesn't change how the deck performs at all with it. Then move on to our grade 1s. 3 copies of Eternity Chaser. Okay, the exact reasoning this is here. It is here because I needed a grade 1 and I didn't want to use Twin Order. That is literally why this card is here. So grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base. Auto, when it's rolled upon, discard 1. Choose up to one of your grade 3 normies from your hand. Reveal, if you revealed a card, switch after 1 grade 3 different card name. Add to your hand and shuffle your deck. That skill has never come in useful except for one time, and that was the one time I forgot to fucking use it, because this deck only has 6 grade 3s, and I either never have Storm in my opening hand, or I get him in my opening hand. The one time that neither of those happened, and I got the alternative grade 3 in hand, and I wrote Eternity Chaser, I actively forgot that I had Eternity Chaser on my Vanguard when I rode, and I didn't use its skill, and I hated myself for it once I realized that, and I knew I couldn't take it back. Thankfully, I ended up drawing a Storm later anyways before I hit grade 3, so I wasn't really a problem with it, but still, it's a good skill. It gets you a grade 3, it gets you Storm, because you definitely want to hit Storm as fast as possible in this deck, so that's good. And then auto back or rear, when your opponent's rear guard attacks, if the power is 25k or less, Soul Boss won't kill itself. Choose one of your units that cannot be in the battle. Okay, in my personal opinion, this is kind of one of my least favorite grade 1s solely because of the skill. Since, you know, it kind of only stops something that can be dropped by like a 15 or 10k. So I don't know why they made Eternity Chaser specifically 25k or less. I'm assuming it was because of original Saver 0, but even then it's kind of like, why though. So I'm giving it a 3 of. It helps with searching if you actually remember its skill, and the second skill will eventually come in handy to me. When, I cannot tell you, but I know eventually it will, so 3 of. I'm hoping out for hope. Then we have 4 copies of the main grade 1. I think everyone that has played this deck can probably agree this is the case. Commander Laurel. Grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 6k base, act rear once per turn. Carapace 1, rest 4 rear guards, choose one of your units, and until end of turn, double its power and it gets a crit, increase its power by the chosen. So, you don't technically have to pick your Vanguard, but you're obviously going to pick your Vanguard. At the very least, first grade 3 turn, Vanguard hits 46 off this flat. So automatically, you've almost hit the 50 threshold from 1 skill, which is good. Downside, you've used up probably 5 rear guard circles, or all of your 5 rear guard circles, or a good chunk of your rear guard circles. Granted, your Vanguard swinging for double crit, and if they're not prepared for this, then that's probably game. But yeah, Laurel's good. Downside is, if you want to make it easier on yourself, you're going to have to see him. And if you don't see him, you're about to have to go through, like, not a convoluted BS mess of skills, but, like, I don't know, 4 separate skills that are going to eat up a lot of counterblast and may or may not rely on a little bit of luck and top decking. So who knows. 4 copies of Laurel, though. He's really good. He is definitely, I guess, the best grade 1 in this deck, and definitely your main grade 1 for this deck. And then we have 4 copies of Magical Police Quilt. Grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base, auto van or rear. When placed, discard 1. One of your Vanguards gets plus 10 for the turn. Okay. That's good. That just brings the Vanguard to at least a 33. I assume you're picking Force 1 because that's what I do, because it just makes it ever so slightly easier to hit that number. And obviously you want to do that because when it comes from 13 to 26 from a Laurel and then a 23 to a 46, obviously you're going to pick the option that got you to 46. And if it's a free option of just getting a Force 1, obviously you're going to take it. So yeah, Quilt's helpful in that regard because she just gives you another plus 10 on top of it just for basically free. So that's pretty good. And then auto rear when your Vanguard attacks, if that unit's power is 30k or greater. Carapace 1, draw a card. It counts as boost too. Now, my thing from this is this. I never use that skill. As much as I said drawing is important in this deck, yes it is, but because that cost a counterblast, I do not use this skill unless I only have 1 face down counterblast. If I only have 1 face down counterblast and I have at least 4 damage, then I'm using her skill. If one of those conditions is not remotely met, I do not use her skill. Even if I have 2 counterblast and 4 damage, or 2 counterblast and 5 damage, at that point, I just don't use her skill at all. Like, even if I need it, because it's not going to happen. So, for Quilt, she is good. She gets me numbers. Her draw skill would be useful if I actually used her, and that's pretty much all I can say for her. 4 of, though, because she can help in an early game rush, worst case scenario. Then on to grade 2s. 4 copies of the grade 2 I hate with my living soul because my friend made a joke with it once and then kept making a joke with it, and now I hate it eternally, and that would be Miracle Dandy. He's a grade 2 with intercept, 5k shield, 9k base, and continuous guard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard, he gets plus 10k shield for the battle. So pretty much he's a 15k shield at the time span that your Vanguard is being attacked if it was grade 3 or greater. Now, here's why Dandy is here. It's because when I was checking through DP, I was trying to find out a lot of cards that didn't have dimensional robos, which is why I don't run that one card that says on place, give your Vanguard plus 10 if it was a grade 3 or greater, stand him after you rest him for his skill. I was trying to find a lot of cards that weren't dimensional robos or weren't a part of archetypes, which is why, as you can see, I don't run that one good dimensional robo card that I agree should be in this deck. So Dandy is here because all the other cards I could find either increase their own power or require the Vanguard to hit a certain threshold, so I might as well get something that can guard and doesn't cost anything to do so. So, 4th Dandy, he can save you in a pinch when you need him, and he's a really good card to call a rear guard because, you're not going to use him, so that's a plus, so you can keep the card you're actually going to use just in case you lose Laurel for next turn, and also he counts as a 15k shield on rear, so he's like the best option, so 4 of. Then 4 copies of Cosmo Beak. Grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Every time I look at this, I think this is Ninja Stars. Auto rear when it's placed, counterboss 1. This unit, one of your Vanguards, gets plus 5 for the turn. So he's a 15, and your Vanguard is getting numbers. That's good. Your Vanguard's getting stronger. It's becoming a lot more dangerous. And all around, that's definitely something you want to see because, makes your numbers very much closer to the threshold that you need to be. Like, for example, if you got the 23 from just having a Force 1, then you Laureled, and then you used a Cosmo Beak, and then you're already at 51. You've hit that threshold in 2 cards. Granted, it would require you to have a total of 4 or 5 rear guards, but still. Then again, you could also use Cosmo Beak first to play yourself to 28, then use Laurel, and you would get a slightly bigger number, but you get the point. You hit the number anyways. It's the important part that matters. So, 4 of Cosmo Beak, it's a really nice help for in getting power, and probably the main counterboss where I use that isn't Laurel, so 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Potent Poison Monster Dakgiri. And I immediately take back my previous statement of saying Cosmo Beak has the one I use the most counterblast on, because that's a fucking lie compared to Dakgiri. So grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 9k base. Act rear if your vanguard's power is 30k or greater. Counterblast 1, jump to soul, draw a card, and one of your vanguards is plus 15 for the turn. So, this is the thing I use to get pluses outside of Laurel. Because once you hit the 30, it becomes astronomically easier. You have to ride twice, or call 2 Cosmo Beaks, or call one of these and get a Force 1. And yeah, that's a little bit more difficult, but it's fine, because Dakgiri will end up giving you a plus 30 if you have 2 of them, and it replaces itself when it goes to Soul. And my thing with this is I somehow managed to have 2 of these in my hand whenever I'm about to use one of them, so that means I can basically get a free plus 30 to Van. Now, one, you can use that to get a fuck ton of numbers on the Vanguard as like a substitute for Laurel, or you can call both of them down, call Laurel, call something else, maybe a Cosmo Beak if you feel like it, if you have the 4 counterblasts to do what I'm about to tell you to do. Use Cosmo Beak, get the Vanguard to 28, use Laurel, get the Vanguard to 56 with double crit, then use 2 of these, and then get the Vanguard to 86 double critical on the first grade 3 turn, while your opponent probably doesn't have a PG in hand. Yeah, this is where the deck kind of becomes game. Like, that did end up happening in a practice match once where I, while they, yes, were at 2 damage, they couldn't stop me. They had 7, well, no, they had 7 hand cards. 2 of them were heals. I think 1 of them was a crit. They were on a grade 2 for force, and and the rest of them were grade 3s. So, yeah, I was kind of game from there. They couldn't really stop the 86 double crit, especially when I actually stacked a crit during my drive check. Yeah, they couldn't stop me. So, 4 of Dakgiri. It's good. It's a really nice card to get power with. It's a substitute Laurel if you can get to 30k. All around nice card, 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Toxic Monster Gelsludge. So he's here because if I can't gain numbers, might as well make you lose numbers. Especially because he only costs a Soul Blast to do it, and the deck gets an excess of Soul and has a lot of Soul that I have no idea what to do with, so I might as well run Gelsludge for it. So grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 9k base. Audion is placed on Van or rear if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 2 or greater. Soul Blast 1, perform one of the effects below. If they're at grade 3, you perform all effects instead. So they may counterblast 1. If they do not, you get to draw a card. So they lose a resource, or you get to plus. And then they may Soul Blast 1. If they do not, they lose 5k on their Vanguard. Yeah, that's a lot more dangerous when you have an 86k double crit Vanguard swinging in your face. So in the case where you got a bunch of numbers, even if they have a PG down, if they only have 1 PG, you can use Gelsludge to make their Vanguard weaker. So 1, you can have a 5th attack coming in at their face so that they can't stop you. And 2, you could just have the Vanguard minusing their numbers, I mean, being fucking astronomically hell big, and then just keep swinging face until they eventually die to it. So all around, Gelsludge is really good for the late game, really good for an early game grade 3 beatdown, and he can be useful in a grade 2 rush. So all around, 4 copies of Toxic Monster Gelsludge, which remember they have to be at least grade 2 to use this skill, but he's still pretty good, so 4 of. Then we move on to grade 3s. 2 copies of Roaring Beast Audion, whose exact words described as, he is here because I didn't want to run only Enigman as my only grade 3, so I decided to run another grade 3, and the only grade 3 I saw that was reasonably, I guess, fair, that doesn't take away Enigman's full status would be Audion, and I did not want to run the Grand Scout, or not Grand Scout, Grand Rope, because Grand Rope has Grand in its name, and Grand Gallop, all that shit, you get the point. So anyways, Audion skill, Act, Van, once per turn, Soul Blast 1 grade 3, put any number of your rear guards into Soul, and this unit gets plus 5k and a crit until end of turn for each card of those sent. So, if by some reason you have to ride this at the end of the game, you can at least, get a benefit out of it, because maybe you're out of counterblast and you can't spam Laurel anymore, or maybe you just haven't drawn into an Enigman yet. Ride Audion, Soul Blaster grade, we'll get a Force 1 on Van, Soul Blaster grade 3, send all your rear guards you've been stacking up for Laurel to Soul, gets God knows how big, and just starts swinging for what your opponent would hope would be PG, and if they don't have a PG, we'll select for them. And then Auto Van, when he attacks, you may Soul Blast 3. You are definitely going to have 3 in this deck to Soul Blast. And until end of battle, when your opponent will call cards from the hand of guard circle, they must call 2 or more at the same time. I do not think that ability is worth it because it only works for the battle. That is a hefty cost for something so small. And like if it was for the turn, I could see it, but yeah, no, I wish it was Soul Blast any number, then they have to guard with the same number that you Soul Blast, and then that would actually be really good for this deck and a lot of other DPU decks, but they didn't for some reason. It's fine though, he's a good grade 3. 2 of, He works as the finisher if you need him to work as a finisher. Otherwise, he works as a really nice alternate ride at the very start of the game to ride him before you ride to Enigman if you want to get the extra force marker out because maybe you don't have a Laurel and you don't want to commit the Enigman yet. So 2 of Audion. He can be useful in certain situations. Then 4 copies of Enigman Storm. The grade 3 we all question. Bushy better give us like the next 3 cards for Dimension Police in the next collection set. All better be Enigmans. I think we all agree on that. If they don't, I'm pretty sure all of us are going to boycott because they definitely need to give us more Enigmans. So grade 3 200 force gift, 13k base. Continues Van during your turn. This unit gets plus 5k for each card with Enigman and its card name in your soul. So 1, they don't have to be different card names. So if you manage to stack up a bunch of these in soul, you just get a lot of plus 5s. But yeah, we need more Enigmans for that just to be a lot stronger on his own. But that's still a good skill, though, because he can get numbers really easily. And then Auto Van, once per turn at the beginning of your attack step, this unit's power, if its power is 20k or greater, which just use a Force 1, and automatically that first skill is free. Until end of turn, he gets a crit. So cool. Play Force 1 on him, automatically at the start of the attack phase, he's at least double critical. Then if you're at 35k or greater, he gets a drive. So triple drive. Okay. Not that hard to hit 35, especially if you have a Laurel, because you've already hit 35. And then the 50, where if you have a Laurel and a Cosmo Beak, or like 2 Cosmo Beaks and a Gelsludge, or, I mean not Gelsludge, a Dakgiri, or you have an Enigman Soul, Cosmo Beak, and 2 Dakiris, etc. If you have that 50k power, 50k or greater power, you get Auto Van once per turn. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked, discard 2, stay on this unit, and increase or decrease its drive to 0 till the end of turn. So you do get the triple drive. Downside is Bushy does not want us getting any drives on our second attack, which I question why. Like, I get it. An 86 beat stick is dangerous when you have double crit and at least 1 drive, but I don't think we need to decrease it to 0 from a restand. But I guess I can see Bushy's argument. It's fair. But either way, it's really nice that we can easily get the extra crit and extra drive, and if you really want to push for that extra restand, then you can, because that restand does end up becoming a lot dangerous. So all around, Enigman's very good. He is dangerous on his own without the other Enigmans. Now imagine if we get more Enigmans that can power us up. Bushy has like given us a weapon of mass destruction, but that needs batteries to work, and they haven't given us the batteries. They've given us 1 battery, which gives us like some power. Now if they give us the rest of the batteries, we essentially have the equivalent to a nuke on our side. So 4 of Enigman Storm, I believe this thing is amazing, and I cannot wait to see what Bushy brings us with more Enigmans. If they bring us more Enigmans. When I say if, I mean when, because they better. So 4 of Enigman Storm, because he's really good. Then we have our force gifts. We have 4 force 1s, 4 force 2s. I do not imagine for a second the game will go past to the point where you get more than 4 force markers. If you do, your opponent deserves a round of applause, because assuming that you did get to 2 force markers and you're using this as that deck, there's no way in hell you could have done it just from riding Audion. You would have to have ridden Enigman Storm at some point. So they deserve a pat on the back for simply surviving that shit. And then, especially from what I have seen what Enigman Storm can do, and you're probably playing the deck wrong if they've survived that long, or both of you are sacking enough, or they're sacking enough triggers, and you've sacked literally nothing this entire game, unless defensively. So yeah, anyways, Force 1, when acquired, goes on Van rear. The unit on that circle is plus 10 during your turn, and this can be put on the same circle multiple times, and it stacks. So if it's on the same circle once, plus 10. If you have 3 on the same circle, plus 30. 5 on the same circle, plus 50, you get the point. Never put this on the rear. Put it on the van. Put it on the van. Stack numbers on van. Make the van the biggest number possible. Or in my opinion, bring them to 33, and then you can start putting it on rears, because once you get to 33, all you have to do is just use a combination of this and this, or use this and this, or actually no, yeah, use this and this, or this boy and this, or just use Laurel once, and then you automatically hit the threshold. So yeah, I say 2 force 1s on van are enough, then you can start stacking them on rears. So Force 1, in my opinion, is the way to go, because it gets you more numbers and it gets you to the threshold faster. As for Force 2, still goes on van or rear. It can't stack, but you can put on the same circle multiple times, and the original critical unit on there becomes 2. Yeah, it's not needed. The Vanguard's already swinging for double crit. If you play this deck like I play it, you're going to have the point where your Vanguard's the only one swinging, and when it already gets the extra crit just for hitting 20, obviously that triple crit isn't going to matter at all, especially when you're trying to hit a bigger number for that extra crit to matter with the restand too. So yeah, Force 2 isn't really needed. If you want to use Force 2 because maybe you know your opponent doesn't have a lot to guard with, because maybe they've committed a lot of their hand to the aggressive, and you know the rest of their hand isn't enough to block even a 30k triple crit swing, then yeah, go for it. Do the extra crits just to flex, but otherwise I have to say Force 1's the way to go. Then we have our quick shield. When one of you uses attack, it plus 5k for the battle. 5k shield, not too much about it. You just use it to defend yourself in the early game. That's pretty much it. You can use it for discard fodder of Eternity Chaser, and that's pretty much it. So, or Quilt over here. Or just use it as a 5k shield like it's intended. So, yeah, that's pretty much the quick shield. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, it is very interesting. It is definitely strong on its own. I think people who say it's Laurel is needed to get the threshold is wrong. Laurel, yes, is the easiest way to hit the threshold, but is not the only way to hit the threshold. There are many other ways, and I'm not even using the best way to use it, because some of the best ways to use it require me to run Dimensional Robo units, and I don't want to mix archetypes, especially because Enigman is actually an archetype. So yeah, don't want to do that. Either way, all around, it's a really good deck. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. It's definitely dangerous if you go first and then you manage to beat the shit out of your opponent with God knows how big of a grade 3. And yeah, so all around it's really fun. Bushy, give us more Enigmans, please. And I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and don't forget to stand up your vanguards.